Hi, welcome to Upstate Curious Zoom chat with Paul. Oh my God, I forgot your last name, Alley, right?
Yes, Sally.
I was going to say Paul Allen. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not it. Paul
No, that would be
Alley,
it.
president from Pestmasters, one of the companies we have recommended for and personally used for a long time. So we're super happy to have him here today. And what we hope will be a quarterly Zoom chat on what's attacking your house this season and how can you take care of it. So
Yeah, we're down. We'll help you out any way we can.
so I have seen a couple people from right, all the legal stuff. I'm Megan Brenwhite. I am an associate broker, the head of the upstate real estate team of Keller Williams Hudson Valley North. That is our full working title here. And I see up here, I see Jen Brown, who's the chief of staff for our team. You want to wave, Jen? I see Danny Romero, who probably shouldn't wave because he's driving, our lead listing agent. Brian Genties, I'm never going to say her name right, who is a buyer's agent in Eldred. Marcy Langworthy, who's the community manager for the Upstate Curious app. And then everybody else here are, I mean, not that we're not interested in what you're going to say, but we actually really need to be interested in what you're about to say. But everybody else hopefully is a homeowner or soon to be homeowner who is looking to learn some things. And if anybody, please feel free to use the chat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be the moderator. So I'm just going to keep my eye out there. So if you ask something, I'll sort of ask the questions in order and, may rephrase some things. If you have any comments, just like, this is your time to get some expertise from Paul. And we do have some questions that people had sent in already. But first of all, let me just say from the perspective of a realtor and someone who sees a lot of houses and has bought and sold and lived in houses myself, what I tell every client is that like nature wants to come into your house and just take it back to the ground. Like that's how I think you should treat your house. Like get the gutters, get the routine maintenance, and get the pest control. Like just keep maintaining things because we see problems all the time that are so easily preventable if people had regular maintenance. And so pest control is one of the ones that people are like, should I get it for this or should I get it for this? I'm like, you just need to have people come out. I think that our subscription, you could talk about that too, Paul, but like, I think our subscription or whatever with you guys is like once a quarter. And then if we see something, we call and we're like, hey, we have a weird invasion of whatever. And then you come out and take care of it.
Right.
It's not a defect of the house. It's not a defect of the area. It is just what happens. It's just what happens. So we've had to deal with ants. We've had to deal with flies, which was pretty disgusting. The most horrifying was spider crickets, which like, if you want to like never buy a house anywhere, like just Google spider crickets. I was like, that's it. We're burning this house down and moving. That is the only solution. They were so terrifying. And you know what? Things just go away and or and
then the next thing comes in.
And they are helped out of the house. Yeah, exactly. So Paul, I wanted you to say a little bit about your background to start, because you're also an entomologist, right? Do you want to just say like, how did you get even to doing Pestmasters?
So I've been in the pest control industry for 35 years, approximately. I started doing it in high school while I was coming out of high school while I was going to college. I started in the pest management field. That was down in Miami. So, I was just a regular route technician working for somebody hourly for years. My father moved here from New York City, and my wife and I at the time at the time was like Paulie was like 2 years old. Says, hey, you want your own pest control company? I'm like, yeah, sure, great. Thinking it was going to be in Dallas, which is where we were living at the time. And no, it was here in Kingston, New York. So we moved here in December of 99, opened the business, March of 2000. And our grand opening weekend was when the Lions Expo used to be at the mall. So it was like a home show put on by the Lions Club. So not knowing anybody, we literally opened the doors and, started a business, not knowing anybody in the area. And fast forward 20 years later, here we are. We're probably one of the largest small business as far as a pest control business in the area. Most of the other companies around town, they have 1 or 2 technicians. Our 2 largest accounts are West Point Military Academy and Empire State Plaza up in Albany, including the governor's mansion. So go ahead.
I meant to ask that too, is like, what area do you cover? Because you cover a huge area, right?
We cover from basically Orange Rockland border all the way to Saratoga. But
on both sides of the river?
Both sides of the river, but so I have 5 people down in Orange County that they report to our West Point office. I have our Albany staff, which report to our office at Empire State Plaza, and then the rest are all here. But this is our corporate headquarters here in Kingston. So
this is I was just curious about this. Is Pestmasters, is it a national chain, or is it a franchise, or was this just your company?
Pestmaster Services is a franchise. It's a national franchise. We even actually international at this point, because we do have 1 branch in Lebanon, which is because of their financial and political troubles right now. He's pretty much just shut down. I think their value on the dollar is like 12 cents on the dollar now. It's just horrendous. So they shut down, but for the most part, we're nationwide. We're in probably about 30 states right now. We being Pestmaster Kingston, New York, we are their largest franchise that they have.
Oh, wow.
So by far.
So another question that I wanted to ask, because I know this comes up a lot, I feel like, with new homeowners, is what kind of chemicals do you use? Would anything be dangerous to people's pets or humans, or do you have a choice of more organic or less organic? Or
so that conversation happens every day, multiple times a day. So the pesticides today are not like they were years ago.
Yeah.
So years ago, we would mix 3, 4, 5, 6 ounces of a product into a gallon and go spray your baseboards. So 35 years later, I still have yet to see bugs that are living on a baseboard. So we don't spray baseboards unless it's something really, really weird. The products today, if I were to use a synthetic pyrethroid, so pyrethroids are synthetic forms made from chrysanthemum flowers, which is where the pyrethrum chemical comes from. Pyrethrums are a contact kill only. So if I go and treat your whatever, roaches, ants, whatever it is, with this product, it's going to kill them, but it leaves no long-term residual. So there's nothing there. Once it dries, it's gone. Some of the ones that are synthetically formed now, and I'll use the product name called Demand CS, just because that one sticks in my head. So the active ingredient in that is a synthetic pyrethroid, but it does have it does last a while. It does have residual effects. So when we mix up a gallon of water now, it's like for Demand, last time I checked the label, it's like I would say it's probably like almost just under a teaspoon of active ingredient mixed in an entire gallon of water. So while we still use those compressed air sprayers, spray it around, the outside, the foundation, around the windows, the exterior. The exterior is where we're concentrating our efforts, not on the interior, because while the pests can be on the interior, they originated on the outside. So we got to break that cycle. The inside is easy. Once we do that, if you have ants or whatever, we're going to use a reduced risk insecticide like a bait or something like that. And we're not going to go spraying all the rooms in the house. If you have ants in your kitchen by your dishwasher, it's really not going to do me any good to put insecticides or pesticides into your bathroom. It's that's not how we do things anymore. Well, that's how we don't do things. Unfortunately, there are companies out there that still go that route. It's not necessary. So we practice what's called integrated pest management. And our philosophy is pesticides as a last resort, not a first choice.
God, I have so many questions. So, let's talk about spring, because we can use spring as a good example. So So first of all, what is the plan that I have? Like, what is the standard? Like, I feel like there is a plan where you guys come out like,
I'd have to look it up, but based on what I know, I'm going to say it's probably our Control Plus program. So we come out on a quarterly basis. You're covered for just about everything, with the exception of powder post beetles, bed bugs, and termites. Everything else you're pretty much covered for inside the house, whether it's rodents, ants, roaches, spiders, crickets, camel crickets, which are the spider crickets you're thinking of, all that stuff. Those are all covered. Stink bugs, ladybugs, those are all included. So we would come out to your home, do a thorough inspection, treat the outside of your home, whether it's a granular treatment. While it's raining, we can do a granular treatment. So we have this, we have the product we would treat on the outside of the house with a liquid also comes in a granular form. So we're not, so people, oh, you sprayed, you came to my house, but it rained. Yeah, but we used the granular, so it has to be watered in. So it worked out just fine. So we don't have to circle back and have upset customers because they think they wasted their money. After we'll do the exterior, and now it's up to the technician what order he does this in. But we do a thorough inspection of the house. So that's take a look in the crawl space, the basement. If we have access, if it's an accessible attic, go up in the attic. We're looking for birds. We're looking for squirrels. We're looking for mice. We're looking for any kind of four or more legged creature that we can that you don't want in your home. Then after that, we're doing very limited product placement inside the house. So you may see sometimes they may put some pest monitoring devices in. So those are just little sticky glue boards. So they're very small, glue board, and it catches insects. So it kind of gives us an idea as to what's going on in the house when we're not around. And then we'll go around and put bait, rebait the bait stations, make sure everything's dated, labeled, and secured. Because we don't.
So just to give a sense, and I guess I don't mean our specific house, although we've always had the same service, and it does sound like that one. Can you give a sense of what that would cost, just so people?
So the new for this year, based on what we're seeing, we'll come out, do the initial inspection. The initial inspection or initial service, depending upon what you have, is kind of where the price goes. So if you came out to the house and I say, okay, listen, you have evidence of mice and you have evidence of carpenter ants. To treat that, you're probably looking at the initial service, if you get on our program, is going to be about $500.
Right.
Then it's going to be quarterly, anywhere depending upon where you live in relation to our closest office, because we have to consider drive time and other routing issues. You're going to be anywhere from $160 a quarter to up to $200 a quarter. But that takes care of everything. And then we also have additional programs that include that, like for ticks. Then we have lesser programs that are just seasonal. If you just want, the only thing you're worried about are yellow jackets, forming nests under your umbrella or your grill or your eave or around a doorway. We have those programs as well. But by far our most popular program is what's called the Control Plus program, which is what you're on.
Because then if something happens between your visits, we just call and we're like,
pick up the phone and call us, and we come out at no additional charge.
Yeah, that's the thing that's pretty awesome about that.
Right. So it works well at times, and otherwise sometimes I get my butt kicked. So we stand behind our work. So yeah, and that's why we have good reputation, because we're going to do what we have to do to make sure that you live a pest. We cannot guarantee the absence of pests. But we can guarantee that we're going to do our best to take care of everything there and then make it livable for you. We're seeing it now. Everybody's coming from New York City, and we're having to kind of say, this is not the concrete jungle. We have pests here. I saw an ant. Great. But when you start seeing 5, 10, 15, then it's sometimes it's a time to call in a professional.
So, this is another sidetrack one, but I'm so curious about this. So I also lived in Brooklyn for 16 years. I have never seen a cockroach up here, but I definitely did in the city. Is that are cockroaches just more like an urban setting thing? And water bugs?
There are over 1,800 different varieties of cockroaches. we typically deal with about 3 or 4. So when I go to some of my larger commercial accounts, whether it's a large school or, an office building that have steam pipes and things like that, then yes, we're going to deal with the American cockroach or the smoky brown cockroach, which are the roaches that you typically will see coming out of the gutters or down in the subways and things like that. Then if we go to the inner city areas, or the, just lower income areas, the prevalence of German cockroaches, and then anybody can get it. So don't, I'm not trying to say that they only have it, but it's more common in those areas because it's a rental situation. And unfortunately, the landlords don't do what they're supposed to do. But the German roaches, those are the ones that you see in dirty restaurants and things like that. So those are the ones that they're about an inch long, about a quarter inch to a half inch wide, and they have racing stripes down their back. They're called the German roach. So those are the ones that you walk into a dirty restaurant, you see one, you just grab your bag and you exit.
Nice.
Yep, exactly. But I've been doing this so long, I can actually go in a restaurant. I can smell them. And so, see, the good part is in my business, I know where to eat.
Oh my God, I don't even think I want to ask that question, but I will say that it is way better to have an infestation of adorable, wait, they're not ladybugs here, right? Aren't they
Asian lady beetles?
Asian lady beetles.
Right.
So it's like, that's like a real cute infestation compared to like massive water bug cockroaches flying around.
But we really don't have the water bug, the cock. We don't have those very much up here. Sometimes we'll get a call. I saw roaches in my kitchen, and you get there and it's actually called a Pennsylvania wood roach. So they look similar, but they come in from the outside, and we classify it as an occasional invader. It's really nothing to be worried about.
So, okay. So I don't even know if I want to start here, but I think this is where we're going to end up. But ticks are obviously the big, everybody's here.
Ticks are insane right now.
I did have somebody who wrote a question about is tick treatment effective if the property has a lot of Japanese barberry plants? I don't know if I've ever, or do barberries attract ticks? Is it because the deer?
I don't think they attract ticks. So interestingly, here the barberry is treated as an ornamental plant because you can go over to Augustine's or any of the other places and buy it. Whereas it's actually an invasive species. So in California, on the highways, some of our franchises, they actually drive down the side of the highway, treating for all of them, hired by the DOT. So the best thing I tell everybody as far as their landscaping goes, keep your grass as short as possible. The area of treatment for ticks is going to be it's called the ecotone area. So it's 90% of your ticks are going to be in that ecotone area, which is the transition between the woods and the grass, because that's where the deer are coming through, and then all of a sudden that's where the ticks are getting knocked off. They'll climb up to what's called daytime resting areas, and this kind of goes for mosquitoes as well, but that goes up to 15 feet high, and that's the area that we concentrate our applications on.
Gross.
I saw somebody's question pop up that said about tick tubes.
Yeah.
I'll address that really quickly. We have deer ticks, which carry the Lyme disease, and then you have dog ticks.
And the dog ticks are the bigger ones, right? So if you see a big one, you're usually okay. It's like the little itty bitty ones that are like.
Yes, those are the ones that carry Lyme disease, and then there's a new disease that. Well, Lyme disease, my understanding is the tick has to be on you for about 24 hours. Yeah. There's a new one out, and I'd have to Google it. I don't remember it. The only has to be on you for about 15 minutes. So
and that's the one that causes like brain damage.
Yes. Yeah. I just can't remember the name of it. I don't know if they have them here. I heard they were here. I haven't, luckily I haven't encountered it. As far as the tick tubes go, tick tubes, in my opinion, and it's pushed by my industry, is a gimmick. And the reason I say that is because if one of the primary carriers, not all, but one of the primary carriers are deer. I haven't seen a deer yet that fits into a toilet paper roll size tick tube. Okay, so they're going after the mice. So the mice, the way those work is basically they put nesting material in a little cardboard toilet paper tube, and they cover it with a little bit of wax, and customers are putting it out in their yards. What happens after about 2 or 3 rainstorms? They're gone. They're done. It's cardboard. The mice have to find it. They don't do a really good way of telling people how many to buy. I'll go to a house and they'll have like 1 or 2 tick tubes on every side of the house. And it's like, it's not doing anything. It's really not. So they have nesting material inside of them. So they'll take that nesting material, which is just cotton. That's all it is cotton. And it's got a little chemical in there. And then it treats the ticks on the mice. It's the same thing as like the dogs that have the tick collars or flea and tick collars. It's the same philosophy. So then the mice can still run in the house, but now he's not carrying ticks into the house. It's not doing any good outside.
And the one friend that I had who did that, who it was effective, like they put so many of them out. Like they put they must have made like 100 of them. Like and then they didn't see ticks on their dog that year, which again is not, and they didn't get as many ticks on themselves, but they had to like really go to kind of extreme lengths, and they must have just killed off and I think they had a deer fence. So the deer were kind of being kept out for that reason. So they really did have to focus more on the mice, but that's pretty.
But it's, for us, I just find it's easier to just do the application with the green product that we use, which is called IC3. And it's the initials are the letter I, the letter C, and then the number 3. IC3, it's made by Essentia. The active ingredients, there's Gerana oil, eugenol oil, mint oil, and some other inert ingredients. It's the 25B exempt product, which means you can use it in wherever you need to use it. You can use it, treat it over water if you have to. It's so safe we don't have to report it to the government. They don't care, because it's basically food grade material. So it has to be applied every 21 days to the ecotone areas. It works really, really, really well. It just takes time to work, and then it wears off. Then we got to reapply it. So we got to keep that consistent barrier up. And the reason
what does that work? Do the ticks just die when they hit it, or do they?
Yeah, they come in contact with it, and it kills them. I think it's an octodopamine blocker or something like that. I don't know. But the important part is it kills them. With the ticks, they're traveling through, on raccoons, on squirrels, on all these other different animals, and you keep the deer out. And the tick tubes, you're working on taking care of the mice, but what about all the intermediate size animals? So people walk around. I was literally sitting in my desk the other day, and I found a tick on me. I'm sitting there eating lunch on Friday. I'm like, something, I'm like, I had a tick in my shirt. And so it's like, okay, how long has that been there? Luckily it hadn't bitten in and embedded. And I found another one crawling on my arm the other day. And this is just from going to customers' houses and literally walking around the outside of their homes, and I'm picking up ticks, which has never occurred before. Never had that happen before.
So why is this year so much worse? Because everybody's been saying, is it the weather? Is it?
It's cyclical. So if you think about last year, think about how many chipmunks we had around. Chipmunks were insane last year because there was a plethora of the nuts and everything else like that. So they had a banner year, we'll say. We didn't have, I don't think we had much of it. It was cold, but it wasn't dire, freezing, drop dead. We're in the middle of an ice storm for the next 3 months type of winter. So that plays a part of it. Insects, when it gets cold, they don't die off. Some of them do, but they don't die off. Otherwise, think about here in the Northeast, if the cold weather killed all the pests, I sure as heck wouldn't be in business right now, because there'd be no pests. So what happens is they go into what's called diapause. So diapause, think of it, it's very easy. Think of it as this is hibernation. So when it hits about 60 degrees, that's when they actually start waking up. And that's when you'll start seeing activity above 60 to 70 degrees, or when it's sunny out. It could be 10 degrees outside and jump up to like the high 20s, high 30s, but your heat is on inside. You'll start seeing cluster flies on the inside in February, ladybugs, and even the occasional brown marmorated stink bug because they've done what's called overwintered in the walls of your home. And now they've all of a sudden that wall heats up really nicely, and they think it's spring, and out they come, and it's still mid-February, and you have insects inside your house.
I think that, so, I mean, apropos, like what you had said before, also, like, you're not going to get to zero insects. It's the same with, I mean, I think it's important just to say it's the same with ticks. Like, you can get ticks. I mean, finding a tick on you, if anyone's moved here more recently, is like going to happen. Like, it's like, unless you literally live in a bubble and never go outside and don't have contact with people who go outside. Like,
Being like COVID?
Yeah, like COVID, exactly. Maybe in the past year, people found fewer ticks. But even then, I would walk my dog and I'd come back and like some tick would have, like, I'm sure, jumped out of a tree and like gone on my arm or something. Like the problem is when they're attached and if you don't know that they've been attached for 24 hours or not. And I know that most of the time, just to say this, I'm not a medical doctor, but go to a doctor. If a tick is attached, most of the time, my doctor will just give me doxycycline as a preventative measure. And that has been great. But like, again, like just so the idea is that like, you're not like, it does not mean that like, if Pestmaster comes and like does a treatment and then you find a tick, it doesn't mean like the treatment failed, because it might have meant that you would have found 20 other ticks. Or the other thing is that ticks are things that hurt you. The other things that you're looking for are things that hurt the house. So what are the things that could hurt the house that start to like activate in the spring? Is this like a time for like
Carpenter? So we have carpenter ants. Now if you look outside your house, you may see these large bumblebee looking things about that large hovering around the eaves and fascia board of your home. Those are called carpenter bees. Then of course we have termites here, despite what people may want to believe. Everybody hears about termites down south, but we have them here. We don't have them very much past Catskill very often, or like up in the mountains. Like, as the higher the elevation, the less the chance of getting the termites. There's also wood destroying beetles. So if you go into some of the houses and if you have furniture, then this is easy for you to find even on your furniture. Go look at some of your furniture that you purchased from any of the local or national brand furniture companies, and look at your dressers and things like that. You may see all these little pinholes in it, and then they've kind of put some putty in there and sanded over it and then painted it or whatever. Those are all wood destroying beetle stuff that they're not going to throw away a huge piece of wood because it's got some WDI and a wood destroying insect in it. They'll just putty over it because it's kiln dried anyway, so it's old damage. They'll just putty over it, and then now, oh look, it gives it nice aesthetic look. Excuse me. But termites, powder post beetles, carpenter ants, and carpenter bees. Those are the 4 items we look for when we're doing a wood destroying insect report for a real estate transaction.
So powder post beetles, it seems like I've been on a million inspections that is like there's evidence of powder post beetle damage, and often it's like from like 100 years ago. Is it like how common are they? Are they still pretty common, or were they just like more common or always common?
They've always been very prevalent. It's just a matter of the inspector and his expertise in determining whether it's active or inactive.
And I guess it's good to also say that like in home inspectors, if they see any evidence of pests, like basically have to say, we recommend that a licensed pest inspector comes out and sees this. Like they'll say some things about it, but it's like with mold and structural things, they really are supposed to like say, have somebody else check this out.
Right. They're supposed to, and like any industry, you're going to find those certain ones that will either give misinformation, or they're going to say, they're going to try to do the WDI report that we do, and then they'll write down their inspector number, which is not the same as our license number. So it's for me, I kind of bite my tongue on a lot of it. I just tell the customer, I said, you hired me to do your wood destroying insect report. That's what I'm going to do. But I'm not going to go and tell you whether the electrical system is here. I have a saying, stay in your lane. So, and that's a great advice for anybody who's watching or listening, that we want to use the proper inspectors for that, licensed realtors, and don't use a criminal attorney for a real estate transaction. Yeah.
We actually had a very, very bad example of somebody doing that recently, which did not end well. It was a real different way of doing. It was the ones that are like ambulance chasers, like the ones who like personal injury, but like it was a whole different way like of doing the transaction. So I think that is it true that like one of the ways that you can tell if a wood boring insect is active is if there's like little piles of dust and stuff, or is that, I mean, I wouldn't want to, obviously like a seller could potentially just like wipe that away. So it's not like so would it mean like if you see the piles of dust that it's like a definite problem?
It means that there is a problem that hasn't been cleaned up. So what a lot of times I'll recommend is, okay, vacuum this dust up, and then put a paper towel down, or paper down, and then let's see if the dust reappears. Then you'll know. And then carpenter. So if you see the things to look for. So if you see large black ants crawling around your house right now, that's carpenter ants. You need to call us. If you see the carpenter bees flying around right now, you call us. If you see one ant, wait. But if you're seeing them on a regular basis, these pests on a regular basis, give us a call. Termites. So termites are really, really prevalent. As I discussed, March through May is their swarm season. So what that means is basically, so if you come home one day and you find anywhere from 100 to 1,000 dead bugs, or on a windowsill, or all you find is wings.
You burn your house, Paul. You burn your house. You walk away. That's what you do. I'll finish your sentence for you.
Either way, you burn it. If you burn it or not, you're going to end up calling me, because I'm a volunteer firefighter as well. So the termites, they swarm out, and you'll find a lot of just wings everywhere.
Oh,
so that's an indication that you have termites. But when you have a swarm, that's an indication it's been in existence for 7 to 10 years, eating on the house.
Oh no!
We're in business here in the Hudson Valley for 20 years. This is our busiest termite season we've ever had. It's some of the jobs that we're doing are. I had a house the other day. A lady had a swarm back in 2018. I said, you need to get this treated. To treat it was going to be like $1,900, I think is what it was. She started a remodel and they found termites. Well, she never treated it. Out of sight, out of mind, because they're behind the walls, they're behind the paint, you don't see them. She called me back in and said, listen, I want to go ahead and get this treated because we're starting a remodel. Okay, great. She had termites from her basement to her 3rd floor.
Oh,
every stud.
Oh no!
All the way across up into the attic. This is a house that sits up on over near East Chester or West Chester, West Chestnut area in Kingston. So those large mansion colonial stuff, huge. So she went from not treating it in 2018 or 19, whenever it was, for $1,800. Now because we have so much more work to do, her cost has tripled, plus all the damage to all the wood members that have to be replaced. I walked in there and they're literally using 4x4s to hold up the walls while they're remodeling because of that much structural damage.
That is like, and again, like, I'm just going to stress this from the point of like, if you are a homeowner, this is a big investment. and it
Or
is
just
so
one
much better
information.
to treat things as they come up. And even if at the time you're like, uh-oh, 1800 seems like a lot for a termite problem, not treating it does not mean it goes away.
That's right.
Like if these guys are like finding something, it's like if you find a mold problem, you wouldn't just be like, maybe the climate will totally change. And well, I mean, but people do that. Honestly, people do that too. So it's the same thing. It's just sort of like, and it doesn't, and I can tell you, it really becomes a problem when you go to sell your house, because then you go to sell your house and then you're not just dealing with the termite problem, then you're bringing in, or the buyer is going to bring in a structural engineer and say, how many of these beams have been compromised? And now it could be tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, we had one over in Hurley that the lady bought a house from a contractor. I got called in to do a secondary WDI because they started having questions, and I started seeing mud tubes, and that's what we look for, little mud tubes in the wood. I'm like, well, why is there a mud tube here? And as I'm kind of looking, I'm discovering that there was newly sistered wood all up under there, and I kept on looking and poking and prodding. Ended up, it was the same situation. The contractor hid, because it was his house, so he hid all the damage, but he didn't hide. Well, he had tried to hide all the damage, but it didn't work. And that was about 40. That was before lumber prices were high, and she probably dropped an extra $50,000 in new lumber in rebuilding the house. And she literally had to gut the house down to its studs.
So yeah, okay.
So we have termites in the Hudson Valley. So if you see one of those swarms, give us a call, have us come out and take a look at it. Now, we do offer free pest inspections. So if you're new to the area, pick up the phone and call us. We'll come out, do an inspection estimate for you if you're having, pest issues. And we'll talk to you about ticks, and we'll talk to you about carpenter ants, whatever we find, we're going to talk to you about. And
I think even if you don't, again, like my recommendation as a realtor, pick up the phone and call, even if you don't think you have pest problems, because you don't know what to look for. Like these guys know what to look for. That's the difference. And I think it's important what Paul said. And he said this like very briefly, and I want to go back to it, which is that pesticides, I can't remember your exact wording, but pesticides are the last resort kind of.
Pesticides as the last resort, not a first choice.
Yeah, because you guys are also looking at ways, I know this, it's like to close off areas to the house and what are the, so, and we've, like, there are like 10 other questions here about like, how do you keep like deer and other things out of the yard? At some point you guys are going to have to cover deer as like pests, I think, in our area, but like.
You know what? We just planted a rose garden last weekend, and I get up every morning expecting, again, the roses are huge blooms right now. And every morning I get up to thinking the roses are going to be gone. Because in my house, I live right here in Hurley, literally 1 minute from my office, and we have bear, we have coyote, we have fox, we have anything you can imagine coming through our yard. We have it. So I'm hoping they don't bother that stuff. But there's really no good deer repellent other than netting, netting and fence. That's it. And I don't want to put deer net up around my house, but the deer are certainly a problem. People have said put Irish Spring soap, shave it, like put it through your cheese grater at home, and grate it all over your in your flower beds and things like that. That's supposed to deter them. But the best thing I can do is tell you, when you do your landscaping, you do use deer resistant plants. That's the biggest thing you can do.
Yeah, because otherwise it's like giving them a little salad buffet all the time.
The deer population has been crazy this year as well. And as a side note, not only we do a lot of government work, Pestmaster does, but one of our contracts. So when you see a dead deer on the side of the road, guess who gets to pick it up? One of my staff, not me.
He's like that guy.
Yes, exactly. It's like, customers, I kid around with my customers will say, if it's a huge like yellow jacket nest or bald-faced horse nest, well, how are you going to treat that without getting stung? Well, it's very simple. I'm going to send my technician out. It's just easier that way. But no, all our guys are given bee suits, so they're all protected, well protected and everything like that. But the deer, I think you just have to kind of do your research. There is some bitter you can do. There's another product that's like a Deer Away, which is a bitter egg extract mixture that you basically, it's rotten eggs that you spray on all your lovely smelling flowers and things like that to stop the deer from eating it. But it has to be reapplied like every 21 days or whatever. So we haven't gotten into that just because I really don't want rotten egg smell driving down the road in my trucks. And because some of the products that we use, baits and things like that, do absorb malodors. So we want to try to avoid that contamination of the baits.
I mean, I think that it's so, because somebody also asked, like, if you have like somebody has like 10 acres and there's like a meadow in part of it, it's like I think, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like you deal with what's most important. Like, is something, oh, our contractors are here. Stewie's, oh, do you have any treatment for this one? Stewie.
He's a cutie. He's cute.
I know, except for the contractors are here, and now he's like gonna protect us, even though they come every day for like weeks. So it's like you look for things that are going to be dangerous to you, like a wasp or hornets or whatever. You look for things that are going to be dangerous to your house. And I guess ticks are the hard one, because ticks are, I'm gonna go outside, I think. Maybe I can do that. Ticks are difficult because they are dangerous to you.
Right.
You know, and they're all over the place. But
so what our tick program is, basically we have, if everybody knows what a leaf blower is, so we have a leaf blower with a tank on the back. And what happens with that tank is basically we fill it with product. The product is injected into the airstream, and we are treating the ecotone area. So we're treating the property line, essentially, is what we're treating. Now, somebody had said, what do you do if you have 8 or 10 acres? How much of that are you mowing? That's the question. If you're treating, I try to go the right way with, I don't want to over apply and just to over apply so I can run up the bill. I don't want to do that. So the average, houses, I'm going to talk the customer into, I had a customer yesterday sitting on 4 acres. I'm like, are you using all 4 acres? Well, no, but I don't want deer. Well, that's not going to stop the deer coming in anyway. I said, what are your ages of your kids? I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I have a pool in the back. So where's the children playing? They're playing in the backyard. Well, then let's concentrate on the backyard. Let's put our efforts where we want the protection. Doesn't do me any good to treat the front yard if nobody's going to be there. Why are we going to waste our money and time doing that?
so somebody had asked if ticks can survive in pool water.
I don't think so. I mean, there's chlorine in it and stuff like that. I don't know the answer to that. I don't think they would. It's just no insects are going to live underwater in water for very long.
I can definitely say I've never heard of anybody saying they got ticks from swimming in.
Yeah, no.
But you definitely could if like let's say you had a pool with like grass all around it, or even just a patio.
Right.
Where, like you said, like raccoons and everybody would go. So that would be an area that you would treat with the
correct
tick treatment.
And the tick treatment, again, it's a completely green product. So it has there's no ill effects to us treating and then people walking across it and things like that once it's dry. And it takes about 15-20 minutes for it to dry.
So is there anything else? Like, is there when you're actually, Marcy had a good question. I want to ask that one about this like horrible like cicada 17-year invasion thing. Like, are we going to see cicadas? Has that happened yet?
You'll probably see some or hear some, but it's not. That brood is actually not here in the Hudson Valley, is what I've been told. And but if you think back 5 years ago, we had the same issue. Understand that there's not just one 17-year brood. There's probably like 12 broods that are out there. So you'll hear about it every other year. Oh, this is the 17-year brood. Yeah, this is brood A, but the next year's brood B. Next one's brood X.
It's just in 17-year cycles, but they're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Like one that sleeps.
It's not just one big invasion, right? but then what you will see is if you have an open yard and it's hot, sandy soil, you'll see these wasps darting back and forth from point A to point B, going back and forth around knee-high level. Those are cicada killer wasps. Again, they're huge. They're like inch and a half. They are not highly aggressive to humans. I mean, you can literally sit down in between them and they're just going to fly right back and forth around you and try to intimidate you like carpenter bees will. But they don't hurt anything. Now, if you grab one, put them in your hand, then yeah, she's going to sting you.
Okay, so here's a question that I've wondered about. Like, if you find out that you have something in your house, like I've heard some people say that carpenter bees, for example, are like really hard to fully get rid of. Like, is there anything where you're like, this is not going to be like, sometimes you have a basement that's just always going to get damp, and so you put in a sump pump and you put in a dehumidifier. Like, what are the pests that are like that? Are there any pests where you're like, hey, this is something that like once they've settled in, they're never going to leave? Or is everything something that you could kind of...
We can take care of pretty much everything.
Okay.
And now we don't just do pest control. Keep in mind that we also get rid of squirrels and bats and invasive, nuisance wildlife stuff. So if anybody out there is having an issue with squirrels in their attic or bats, which are, I've
That's
seen
really hard, right? Isn't that like an expensive one to fix once they get all...
anything. Once you get into nuisance wildlife work, it can get expensive very quickly. Depending upon what the problem is. Sometimes it's covered by homeowners insurance, sometimes it's not. Unfortunately, most of the time it's not. Like, if it's termites or not, no pests, no insects are covered. But then you also have like squirrels are not covered because they consider it a rodent. Bats are not covered. However, if somebody calls me up and says I have a raccoon in my attic, that's covered. It's weird.
Weird.
Yeah, it's weird. So it's all about whatever's in your homeowner's policy.
That's the one that like some people were starting to posted things on Upstate Curious that were, I guess, vole trails, I think.
Voles, yeah. So it's meadow mice. So
Yeah.
they're about the same size as the mouse. They have no tail. And they go up underneath up under the snow. And I have a couple trails on my side yard right now from back then. And the trails are just caused from them going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth under the snow. Think of the igloo effect. It's warm at the Earth's surface, and they're able to make their way through there and the snow, and they go into their den or whatever. We don't deal with them that often. They're an outside wild pest that just we don't really have to worry about them. They don't invade houses.
So so if you had so to answer Steve G's question, an inspector is definitely going to look for termite and wood destroying insect issues. I mean, it's certainly one of the things that every inspection report I've ever seen.
Yeah. So Steve, so during our wood destroyed insect report, we come out, we're going to look for termites, carpenter ants, carpenter bees, and powder post beetles. Those are the four issues that we are checking for. Those are what cause wood damage. You'll get a piece of paper when we're done, or electronic report when we're done. It is a chargeable service because it's something for the bank. But I recommend everybody to get it done because then you have a professional looking at it. If you have, those are the issues that would show up on a WDI report here. Now, other states you have other pests, but those are the primary four that we're looking for.
And that's the idea is that normally your normal home inspector will let you know if you need to do that, but you're allowed to do any inspection. I mean, generally you're allowed to do almost any inspection you want within the 10-day inspection period. So if you're are already I want to get Pestmasters to come in and check out this house for wood destroying insects without the home inspector saying anything, that's something. It's like septic inspections. Like a lot of people just hire a septic inspector, to do something additional.
It goes back to what I was saying before. Stay in your lane. Let the home inspectors inspect the home. Let the structural engineer and if that's required, have him look at what he's supposed to look at. Have the pest inspector look what specialties. You want the people who are the best in their business to look at the most expensive thing you will ever purchase in your life. You know, that's a large, our home is your largest investment ever. So, you know, do the right thing, hire the pest guy to do that. Hire the home inspector is great for figuring out if the dishwasher works and the oven's hitting the right temperature, and if there's, structural issues, talk to the people who do that for every day. Because we run into home inspectors that the difference between us and a home inspector, as far as from the wood destroying insect thing, is we have to be licensed in category 7C for termite and wood destroying insects by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. To get that license, we have to go through classes and hours of certification training, and then years of CEUs. The home inspectors, my understanding is it's about a 2-hour course. This is, they get a snapshot. This is it. This is what you find. And that's why a lot of times the reputable ones will turn it over and say, hey, you need to talk to a pest professional.
I think that they have to. My understanding with home inspectors is that they're actually not even allowed to say too much about it. Like if they see anything that could be evidence, they go get a
The reputable ones, that's exactly what the reputable ones do.
So that's, so basically it's, if you're ever on the fence, it's good. I mean, it's good to spend the money on it. And in this market, which is such a seller's market, what you're often doing is just deciding, can I live with the cost of fixing this? Which is also why it's good to get a quote from a company like Pestmasters, because they're going to fix it too. Like, so they're not just going to be like, yes, you have termites, but they're going to be like, yes, you have termites, and this is the treatment plan, and this is how much it will cost, and yada, yada. And then you can decide, you can go back and negotiate with the seller. Almost
right. Exactly.
Like, unfortunately, I mean, you can try, but like, it's a tough market. But then you could just say, okay, great, this is like a $3,000 problem and not a $25,000 problem. So like, let's see.
Exactly. I mean, it's at this point that the market is just so, like you said, it's a seller's market. I know we were looking for a house down in Florida, South Florida, and we have appointments to go look at these houses. We're pulling a driveway. An agent comes out and says, sorry, I just took contract on it. I mean, literally, like it happened 3 times in one day that we were looking at houses down in South Florida.
Yeah, it's it's national. It's like a national.
It is.
So it's, I mean,
it is, and it's great. We're looking in Kentucky as well, and we call the agent over there, and she's like, call me a couple weeks. I have 0 inventory.
Okay,
this is for vacant land.
Asking another gross question. Thank you, Marcy. One of the technicians told me the most horrifying story about a woman with a mouse infestation in a garage, which attracted snakes, and one slithered out from under her car while driving. Is this a true story? No.
Yes.
Just say no. Just say no, please.
We got called to Kingston Plaza not too long ago to by a store there that their customer went out to their car and there was a snake in the car. We had to remove a 6-foot black snake from inside their car, under their seat dashboard area.
Oh my God, we didn't even talk about snakes. Do you guys deal with snakes? Like copperhead?
Non-poisonous. I don't want my guys doing anything with poisonous snakes, but most of them are protected anyway. The mice are in the house, so if you have snakes in the house, snakes are there because they're hungry. So what do they eat? They eat mice. So 90% of the time I tell the customer, let's get rid of the mice and the snakes will go away on their own.
Okay, so
you don't like snakes, I can tell.
I don't like any of this.
And you're outside too right now.
I know. Who knows what kind of ticks are. And now I'm like, there you go. I could spray right there in our dead, dying pine forest. So I guess my last sort of question would be, is there any piece of advice that you would give new homeowners? Like when they're like, how do you avoid problems like this? Or is there one thing you're like, God, I wish people knew this? I mean, other than to call you, which I feel like is the biggest.
But that's the biggest one, is to call us, let us come out and evaluate it. Our office is in Kingston. So I had an estimate this morning in Athens at 9:00 this morning. So anybody who knows how far Athens is a good 25, 35-minute ride. So I drove up to Athens. I got to the customer's house. They have carpenter bees. They don't have them bad. And the guy's like, this is what I've done. I've done this, 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 and this. I'm like, okay, great. Then you really don't need me. So literally it took, 40 minutes out of my day to drive there, 40 minutes back. I'm driving a big, I drive the Pestmaster monster truck. If anybody's probably seen it at this point. It's big, bright, and loud. But it goes to show you, I mean, I drove up there. I could have very easily said, you need to do this. This is going to cost you this. But I walked away from the job because he didn't need my services. But at least he knows now that next time, if he has an issue, he's going to call me, because I was straight up and honest with him. I said, you don't need my services now. Call me when you do. Because he plugged all the holes. He was getting ready to pull down the wood and repaint it and do everything that I was going to make a recommendation that we would recommend doing, but he's already on top of it. So call us, have us come out, do the free inspection. It doesn't cost you anything. I had a lady call me last night. She just wants a price over the phone. I said, I don't do prices over the phone. I'll give you a ballpark she goes, well, I have mice. It's not very bad. And she goes, I don't want to waste your time. So just give me a price over the phone. I said, okay, it's going to be anywhere from $300 to $1,000. How does that help you at all? She's like, no. Well, no, because I need to come out look at it. I said, you can't call the mechanic and say, what's it going to cost? My car makes this weird sound. It's not, it doesn't work that way. So we go out, we look around, we do the inspection for free. We'll identify any pest issues that you have and concerns, and we'll work with you to get a treatment plan that's going to take care of your problems.
So, and also, I just want to be clear. I probably should have said this at the beginning. We do not get any like discounts or kickbacks from Pestmasters. Like that's not, and that is not a way, like with realtors, I think you actually are allowed to do that, but then you have to disclose it, but it's not something we would ever do. Yeah. It's a weird, but it would be so embarrassing to disclose it that nobody would ever do it. But the point is that like, this is something that I feel so strong. I actually feel so strongly about. And like Pestmasters is a company that, like, as you've seen, a couple of us have worked with personally, clients have worked with and really like them. I'm sure if you're in an area that they don't cover, I'm sure there are other good companies near you. But this is like, it's like the worst form of like treating yourself for cancer on like WebMD. It's like, just don't do that. You think you have cancer, go to the doctor. You think you have a pest problem, call pest control people, because you just want the problem to be done before it gets really bad. And that's it. And that's like, it's not to me, it just is. I've seen so many problems that have gotten so bad when people haven't done it, and it's so easily preventable. And it really is like every season. I think if you know that, it's like, call pest people. If like you have a problem, number two, you're always going to have like bugs and weird things trying to get in your house or in your yard.
Absolutely. So here in the Hudson Valley, so like right now, it's like Carpenter Ant, Carpenter Bee season. From here, we're going to kind of slowly migrate as it gets warmer out into just general pests issues all around. In the hot months, you're going to see yellow jackets, and the stinging insects are going to be really prevalent. As you start going into fall, you'll start seeing the ladybugs and the stink bugs. And then you're going to start seeing the mice issues trying to get into the house. And then over winter, you could see some cluster fly issues in the winter months and the ladybugs, like we talked about before. And then before you know it, you're getting back into spring, which is going to stir up the overwintering insects. And then you're back into the later spring, you're back into the carpenter ants again and everything like that. And then the ticks. And then of course you take into consideration also the nuisance wildlife issues, the squirrels getting into your house, and bats and their roost, their I can't think what the word I was going to say. I lost my brain. What they're trying to do on an annual basis, they just want to try to build a nest somewhere and have pups or babies or whatever you want to call them. So yes, we're in a very buggy area, very pesty, area, and it's the ticks this year are going to be the worst they've ever been. So keep it in mind.
Mental note: get your treatments. It's not one thing. Get your treatments. Check yourself. Wear light clothes if you can. Take a shower after you go like hiking in the woods. Like, check your friends and family. Like, and it's part of living in this beautiful area. That's it. Right. So you just need to have like friends to help you get rid of friends who are way less squeamish about bugs and pests. So it's like, I am very glad that you have a big team of people who are willing to do a job that would
Yep,
scare the
all,
crap out of me on
all
a
of our
daily basis.
staff are licensed by the state, and they're also background checked. So that's important when you're choosing your pest management company or professional. Ask them about their licensing. Ask them to make sure they're insured. Check them out on the DEC website, because there are companies out there right now that are jumping on the bandwagon for ticks, and they are not licensed, and they're not, even the nuisance wildlife people. You need to just do your research, because the last thing you need to do is have somebody come in, even the landscape, the guys who cut grass. They're not allowed to apply any herbicides like Roundup to kill any weeds or anything like that unless they have a triangle sticker on their vehicles. So if you don't see that triangle sticker from the DEC, they're not licensed. So, which means they're not insured, which means if they kill something or poison your well into your house or anything like that, you're going to have zero recourse.
That's so funny. I was just gonna say, could you tell us what your website is? So you
Yes.
got the phone number here, and if you put Pestmaster services, if you just put Pestmaster Kingston, that's how I always look it up on Google. It pops right up. So Paul, and let me just say again for the record, Paul has been one of the most active users at our app at Upstate Curious, and he is answering questions left and right from who would install outdoor speakers to
Yeah, IITS.
yeah, more in his wheelhouse with the pests. So yeah, definitely check us out on the app. You just download Upstate Curious, and yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Paul. This has been
anytime you want to do this quarterly, we can do this quarterly.
horrifying, comforting simultaneously. So it's good.
Anything I can do to help. I think the app is great. Like I was telling you before the phone on our preview, before the session started, we found out about it from a customer, and she's like, yeah, I always ask people, how'd you hear about us? Well, whether Nextdoor or Home Advisor or Yelp or just the internet. And the lady says, oh, I found you out on this new app called Upstate Curious. I'm like, what? So let me look it up. And my wife's in the truck. She Googled it, signed us right up. And I don't know if I'm more active on Upstate Curious or Robinhood right now. I'm not quite sure which one. So anyway.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. Appreciate your time so much.
No problem. Anytime.
Yeah, we'll post this video, and so lots more people will see it too.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks everyone for joining. Bye.
Bye.